Am I the asshole for pointing out the double standards between me and my partner? Hello all. This a quick one. My husband and I live in predominantly white neighborhood where I, a woman of color, continuously gets stares and whispers whenever I'm out walking with my husband, who is not a person of color. My guy wanted to go for an evening stroll before dinner. I thought that sounded like a great idea. He then said he was gonna take a can of beer and if I wanted one. I said no thanks, I'll have it when we come back. He pushed the issue, asks why I won't have one. I jokingly said because I'll definitely get some looks and I just want to enjoy my walk. He gets offended and says that no one will look at me, it's fine. I then seriously state I will since I can't even walk around the neighborhood without getting them. He then says I'm overreacting and no one cares if he does it. I then point out the obvious difference between us. He was dead silent during our walk and dinner. Am I the asshole?
Not the asshole. He doesn't notice because it doesn't happen to him.
Not the asshole, and I'm sorry this happens. A longtime friend of mine is black, married to a white woman. He has always had more white friends, I'm white, I've known him for 25 plus years, than people of color, and we all live in predominantly white suburbs. His house is on a corner with a big picture window. Someone called the police on him once because they saw a black man in a nice house. He's an assistant state's attorney and the police were embarrassed when they stopped by. I was appalled when I heard the story.
Not the asshole. Is he always this oblivious or just this one instance? Have you told him about the looks you get in the past?
Not the asshole. My fiancée, we are both women, is mixed ethnicity and I am white. I learned very early on that she gets way more looks than I do when we are out. She has gotten used to it, but it's something I notice because we do grab some attention together. He needs to do some reading and really look into the privilege he has as someone that is white. He definitely was not reacting the way I think anyone should act when their privileges are pointed out. Not the asshole. He needs to understand that you deal with stuff that he doesn't. Point out the people next time.
Not the asshole. People tend not to handle it well when you point out their privilege, but it sure doesn't make you an asshole for doing so. He's a bit of an asshole for pushing you and then pouting about it when you shut him down.
Not the asshole. How on earth has this doofus gone this long, being married to a woman of color, and not noticing this disparity? Is he living in a bubble? But for real, I get your frustrations on a less severe level. Skeptical smiley face. I'm of Middle Eastern descent, and my white husband doesn't seem to notice when some of his own family members have been racist towards me. One asked if I'm offended by Christianity. I grew up Christian. He brushes it aside and says that they're just ignorant but mean well, and that I'm making a mountain out of a molehill. This seems like such a common thing. I've heard of this happening to many other interracial couples. They might be really woke when it comes to other POC, but they neglect to look at their own blind spot and see what's happening to their own significant other. Not the asshole. Of course you would be more likely to notice this pattern because it is happening to you and not him. IDK why he isn't okay with you saying what your experience is and why his might be different, especially since you didn't ask him to change his behavior and just said you were gonna drink your own beer when you get home.
I'm a white male and my ex-wife was POC. It didn't really hit me until we were talking about having kids, and her dad sat me down and gave me the talk. Not, you hurt my daughter you die, but this is how you get your kids back alive from a traffic stop. That was the moment it all really clicked for me. Not the asshole. I hope your husband has his understanding moment soon. Edit, male not make. I'm on mobile.
Not the asshole. He's not even trying to see from your perspective.
As a white straight male I hate the idea of white privilege, but there is no denying it, especially in the South USA where I live. I'd like to think we're better than that, but I am neither stupid nor unobservant. Maybe someday.
Not the asshole. He needs to understand the differences between you two and realize that people do stare and will continue to stare because of your interracial relationship.
Not the asshole. Even if this wasn't about the obvious issue of you be looked at differently due to your color, your husband has no right to decide when and if you are uncomfortable with the situation. The fact that he sees neither issue means he seriously needs to reevaluate himself.
Not the asshole. I'm also a wok whose partner is a white man, and if he pulled this shit with me I would be out. For me, feeling safe in our relationship means he does the work to listen, understand, and trust that I know my experiences are what best, and that experience includes challenges he'll never face. He's grown to understand this over the years, and yes, sometimes I have to spell it out when a new situation comes up. Part of his work is reminding himself that racism and sexism is something that happens to me, not to him, and that his role as a loving partner is to support me and give me the space I need to recover from whatever latest bullshit incident. That's your partner's job too. His job is definitely not to tell you're overreacting about something he's never had to think about before, or give you the silent treatment when you very admirably voice your concerns. I hope that overall you're getting the support you need in this relationship, because this situation isn't it.
Not the asshole. I have no experience of racial abuse myself, and I get that not being on the receiving end makes it harder to notice, but you would have to be blind not to see it at all. Especially when you know it happens every single day. It sounds like it's ignorance on your partner's part, but still. Perhaps sit down and have a talk about your daily and past racist experiences. Tell him you love that he doesn't see you as being different but other people do, and so you need his support even if he doesn't quite get it. Once you point out all the little ways in which you are subjected to abuse, I am sure he will suddenly see it happening. This has worked during conversations with men about sexism, and it's like their minds are blown when they finally take the blinkers off.
Not the asshole. I just read an article about a college professor who was walking down the street, minding his own business. He got detained by 2 policemen because he resembled a man who just robbed a white woman's house. In other words, he was black. It's a real thing in this country, and that was just one example.
Not the asshole. Is his next pouting session going to be about how you've never been sexually harassed in your life either? Your husband needs to learn empathy, and that his experience is mired in privilege and is different from anyone who is not a white, straight, cisgender man.
Not the asshole. Your husband is in denial. White people tend not to believe someone is racist unless they are wearing a white hood and screaming white power.
Not the asshole, and it's incredibly shitty of him to dismiss your concerns like that.
Not the asshole. Black woman here, and you were absolutely correct in schooling your husband. He needs to open his eyes to your reality in order to be the best partner he can.
Not the asshole. It's a common reaction for the privileged to feel like you're attacking him when you point out that things aren't equal. He needs to wake up and realize that even if he doesn't experience things, that doesn't mean they don't happen, and your experiences as a woman of color will drastically differ from his own, especially in white neighborhoods. Not the asshole. Sorry, you're married to a guy that doesn't understand race.
Not the asshole. I'm mostly surprised that he's never had to deal with the different realities for white men and black women before.
Not the asshole. I am a white woman, and my partner is a darker-skinned Latino. We talk about the different struggles we face. He doesn't know what it's like to be passed up for promotions at work by a boss who both tells you you're not as good at your job as your male coworkers and sexually harasses you in turn. I don't know what it's like to be genuinely afraid when I get pulled over by the police or get called racist slurs. We clue each other in on our experiences and try to be conscious of how the other one experiences the world and what they have to deal with. Your husband is just more fortunate in this regard, but he should know that his experience isn't yours.
No assholes here. The only people deserving to be called tar here are the people who stare at you for the color of your skin.
Not the asshole. Your partner needs to wake the hell up. His perception of you daily encounters is so far off. No assholes here. My wife and I are an interracial couple. My wife would frequently point out people staring at us. I was just completely oblivious. I see it now. I now give my wife a big kiss and stare back at the person staring, hoping they can see our love.
You are absolutely not the asshole for making him aware of his privilege and of what you deal with daily. His initial reaction was defensiveness and perhaps anger, but I encourage you to wait for him to react with his brain instead of with his conditioned response. He has likely never been confronted with his own privilege and likely reacted before he even thought about what you were saying. That isn't to defend him in any way, because he is a bit of an R here. One can only hope that his love for you and your life together will allow him to open his eyes to the fact that your lives' experiences are different than his. That you face challenges daily that he, as a white male, will never face. I hope that you are able to have an open discussion with him about your experiences, and I hope that he is better able to see things from your perspective and to better support you.
Not the asshole. But would you like to have a beer on your walk? Why should only white people be allowed to enjoy walking through the neighborhood? It just seems like foregoing something you'd enjoy in order to avoid rude stares is letting the racists win. Drink up. Walk the neighborhood with confidence. You have just as much of a right to be there as they do.
Not the asshole. Make a point of telling your husband when you feel stares and when you feel unfairly treated. He doesn't notice because it isn't happening to him. Make him notice. Have an ongoing dialogue about race. Your husband may not enjoy it, but it's necessary one since you are being singled out. And if you have future kids, there will be more issues to deal with. I live in a large city with my husband. I am Asian and he is white, one of the most common racial pairings in America. We have 2 biracial kids. We are in agreement on racial issues. But we still discuss it. Our discussions have moved to talking about our children who will navigate a bicultural and biracial experience. Being part of an interracial relationship in America means this conversation is constant and ongoing. Don't be afraid to talk.
Not the asshole. You pointed out a noticeable difference between you and your partner. He needs to recognize that you have a different life experience than him as a woman of color. It's not for him to say how you experience life. My partner and I are flipped, he's black, I'm white, and he has discussed life experiences that I've never had to face as a white woman. It's a way to have a conversation and to honestly make a plan about how we'd go about it if it happened together while we were in public. He needs to back you up or at least attempt to understand your experiences. Not the asshole. It's the whole issue of it doesn't happen to him so he doesn't notice it. It happens. It's your experience. He needs to open his eyes.
No assholes here. The problem could be, until he catches it happening, he isn't looking for it. It's never happened to him, and this was the first time you pointed it out to him. Your husband doesn't see the world the way you do, and he doesn't see you the way the racists do. Now that you've told him, he's going to be on the lookout for it happening, and the first time he really sees it happen it's probably going to hurt and enrage him in rapid succession. Not the asshole. Others have pointed out that his reaction is normal, but that doesn't make it okay. If he is dating a POC, he should have some sort of understanding on these things. He should have just dropped it.
Not the asshole. Unfortunately, you live in our reality. No matter how colorblind he is, he truly will never understand a person of color's reality. My partner is white. I get treated better with him with me, than with Ohut. Actually got stopped by a new neighbor asking me if I was lost while on my walk.
Not the asshole. I'm dating a white man too. He makes it his responsibility to be socially aware enough that I don't have to explain things like racism to him. Your husband is being a child if he thinks you guys live in some utopia.
Not the asshole. I'm curious, did you feel he was angry? Thinking? Ashamed? I'm hoping against hope he's having an aha moment rather than sulking after his wife speaks the truth.
Not the asshole. As a white guy who didn't understand this for far too long, I'd wonder how the follow-up discussion goes with your significant other. Is he getting defensive or just doesn't understand it? After some cooling down, does he double down or attempt to understand your perspective?
Not the arsehole. Anger is not the correct response to having white privilege pointed out. No, not the arsehole. Give him time to absorb the info you've given him. He's probably never thought about it and it might be upsetting him out of concern for you. Guys can be pretty thick sometimes. If it comes out later that he thinks it's because you're genuinely overreacting, then I would recommend some marriage counseling. Are either of you legally allowed to carry open alcohol on your walk?
Not the asshole. My white husband believes me when I talk about these things. I would not be with him if he didn't.
I'm on the flip scale. Black male, white girlfriend. She sometimes doesn't understand why I feel uncomfortable walking in bar with her and I'm the only black guy. Makes it really awkward getting drinks at a crowded bar. I've gotten so many stern looks approaching the bar.
Not the asshole. Sounds like he may have just been processing the information? At least I hope so. Not that the two situations are the same, but an illustration. I have a friend, who happens to be obese, who would almost always refuse to eat with me in public. I couldn't understand why. One day she told me that people stare at her if she eats anything other than extremely healthy food. She showed me. We got ice cream and I watched for it, thinking she was overreacting. No. The stares were numerous and uncomfortable in the busy food area. All directed towards her, and most looked disgusted. I couldn't unsee what I had no idea even existed before. Privilege can be a really powerful set of blinders. Although I apologized to her immediately for not seeing it before, it took a full week to process the cruelty she experienced and that I had been visually oblivious to it before as a thin person.
Not the asshole.
No assholes here, he obviously doesn't care about skin color the way others do.
God, it's sad you live in a neighborhood like that. I am from a country where the majority race comes to little more than 50 to 60% of the population, so if you only dated one race you'd be counting out almost half the population. Interracial couples are so common, you'd never even notice, much less care. I don't even think I know anyone who's only dated one race. For my uneducated opinion, I'll give you a not the asshole.
Not the asshole. I am white and thought I lived in a non-racist European country, until I was walking through town with my white friend and her non-white partner and his friends. Well, I couldn't believe it. We openly got shouted out on the street. I was disgusting, and I was so ashamed of my home country people. We stopped at the AM for me to get out money and a white woman came over and asked was I being robbed by those guys. I was so angry I said, of course not, sure he's a dentist, he's on much more than me but it shouldn't have happened.
Boo-hoo, I get looks when I get outside, why does the opinion of other people matter? You need to realize that the opinion of others doesn't matter. When me and my friends went outside to walk, some old ladies looked at us weirdly IDKY, but we just ignored them. We are 13.
I'm not sure on this one, why was he silent? Maybe he was just digesting the new information and adjusting his view? I want to know what he said when he started talking again. Could be that he genuinely hadn't noticed before because, as a white guy, it's never been his experience and now he's reevaluating his perspective, I hope so anyway.